What is happening, guys? I'm Greg from Redbeard's Garage, and this is the Road to Horsepower. If you've been watching the Road to Horsepower, you'll know we took a Predator 212 Hemi engine from Harbor Freight and we started adding parts one at a time and dynoing it after every single part to see the real world gains. We're going to do Series 2 a little different, which is going to be the Wildcat 223 edition. Instead of adding one individual part, we're going to do it in big chunks like someone would be building an engine at home. We're going to do stage kits. So what we have today is kind of like a Stage 1 Plus kit from EC Carburetors. Since this is EC's flagship engine, we're going to use a bunch of parts from EC in this series. Now, we're not done with Series 1 on that Hemi Predator. We still have a lot of performance parts we can throw at that thing and a lot more power to be made. We've almost tripled the horsepower of that engine, so we're definitely not done with it. We just want to add more engines to this because a lot of people might not care about the 212 Predator Hemi, and you might want to see this Wildcat get done. So we're trying to give something for everybody. We want you guys to leave a comment in the comment section and let us know what Series 3 and 4 should be. What engine should we do? Because we're going to read your comments. Whatever is voted the most is what we're going to do. So pick out the engine maybe you want to see the most or that you own yourself. And we'll be reading those and checking those over the next couple weeks. So the biggest question we always get is, can I remove the governor and not mess with the flywheel or the rod? If you watched our last video where we compared the Wildcat to a bunch of engines, you'll see we explained why a flywheel is dangerous. We even showed some pictures of some that has broken. The biggest safety concern of a cast steel flywheel is the magnet that fires the ignition coil. This is mounted on the outside of the flywheel and it's held on with a small amount of epoxy and a very poor quality screw. So that is the most dangerous part about a factory flywheel. So we're going to be removing the governor today, but we're definitely going to be upgrading the flywheel, but we wanted to keep this first stage as a budget build. So we went with this cast aluminum flywheel from EC. This flywheel is extremely cheap. It's around 40 bucks on EC, and that's the price of about 8 coffees if you drink Starbucks coffee. So that's a very affordable part to give you safety, and it has 18 degrees of timing, which is going to give us a little bit more power with that. Not to mention the weight reduction from going from the steel one to the aluminum one is going to let the engine rev a little bit faster. Since we are doing that flywheel, the Wildcat does have a governor in the coil as well as a mechanical governor. So we're going to be removing the governor and also installing one of their coils so we have an unlimited coil pack. They do that as a secondary safety. Just in case the mechanical governor was a fail, you have a backup to keep you safe, the rider safe on a go-kart or a mini bike. Another big question we get asked is, should I replace the rod? Now, the rod is definitely not a have-to-do thing. The flywheel is a safety thing, so we always say to do that. But if you really want to get longevity out of your engine, then I would definitely swap out to a billet rod in these engines. If you've been in any of these engines, you'll know that the rod doesn't have a factory rod bearing and it's just a casted aluminum rod. So what we're going to be doing is adding EC's Pinnacle billet rod. This is not only going to give us strength and reliability, but it's also going to put our flat top factory installed piston at 0 deck height. What this means is that top dead center, the piston is going to be flush in the block, where right now it sets in the hole a little bit. Every one of these engines, the pistons do set in the hole when the crank is pushing the piston up at its highest travel. So with this rod, we're not only going to gain the reliability, but we're going to get more power because we're going to go from around 8.5 to 1 compression up to 10 to 1 compression, which is a huge gain with a single part. Since we're done all that, we do need to upgrade the valve springs because the Wildcat does have 10.5 pound valve springs stock. So we're going to use EC's 22 pound springs to beef up that valve train so we don't get valve float with these newfound RPMs. So since we're adding more RPMs, we want to give it more air, fuel, and exhaust. So we're going to be running a header, and I know there's different bikes, different go-karts, different builds out there. So it's going to be real hard to link headers in the video's description where we have everything linked down there. But we are going to put some of EC's headers that may work on your build. But we are going to be running a straight header, no muffler on it. We're going to take off the air box, and we're going to upgrade the carb, but we're not going to go such a huge jump. Now, you could just jet up the carb with a $6 jet, and that would make a big power difference, and also taking the air box off and running the velocity stack. But we're going to use the Tillotson PK-3A carburetor. This carburetor was designed by EC specifically for the kart racing world. So it follows all the rules of a stock style carb, but the biggest thing that it adds is an adjustable pilot jet. These factory carbs don't have any way to adjust the pilot circuit, so you don't have no adjustment for the low and mid speed of the carb. So this is going to give us that, and it's also pre-jetted out of the box for most applications. Of course, this all depends on your elevation, your humidity, and the things you've done to your engine. So EC does sell a 9-piece jet kit just in case that this carb doesn't work out for your area. So that should be a little bit of jump there. And with that, we're going to use the velocity stack and an air filter. So this kit should make really good power on the dyno and make a massive difference. We're going to throw this engine stock on our test bike, let Lonnie take it 0 to top speed to see what it does. And then we'll do that after all these parts as well. And then we'll throw it on the dyno to see how much of a performance gain we got and how that changes our dollar per horsepower. So let's get right into it. First off, I need to tear down the engine. I'll start by removing the airbox, muffler, gas tank, throttle, carb, governor arm, fan shroud, and the coil. To remove the stock flywheel, thread on the nut to protect the threads and pry against the flywheel and tap the end of the crankshaft with a hammer. The shock from the blow will cause the flywheel to pop off the taper of the crankshaft. I can now remove the valve cover, head shroud, and valve train before removing the head. Removing the stock split retainers can be frustrating, so we have a valve spring removal tool on rbgcarts.com. This is the fastest and easiest way to remove these retainers. Just place the mat under the valve and press down on the tool. The retainers will pop loose and fall right out. You can see the difference between the stock and the 22-pound valve springs. To reinstall, it's just as easy. Use the installation tool with the spring-loaded lip. Just line everything up, press down, and seat the retainers. Next, I can remove the side cover, cam, lifters, and unbolt the rod and slide out the piston. slide out the crank and remove the remaining governor parts. And make sure to grab the washer inside the block. The easiest way to remove the governor gear is use a punch and tap it out. There will be a washer behind the gear, so make sure to grab that as well. I use a 1-inch long 1/4-inch bolt, and it'll thread right in the block without having to use a tap on both governor holes. To remove the stock rod, we use a pick to pop out the clips on the wrist pin. When installing the billet rod, make sure to orientate the long ear of the rod on the same side of the piston as the arrow. Install the new billet rod and snap in the wrist pin clip. When installing the bearings, make sure to line up the notch on the bearing and the rod cap and piston rod. There are several different ways to check our oil clearance on our new billet rod. The fastest and easiest is using calipers. Our crank journal needs to measure 1.180 plus or minus 0.005 of an inch. If the gap is too large, you may need to replace your crankshaft, and if it is too small, recheck that the correct rod was purchased. I like to remove the governor gear on the crankshaft. It's pressed on so it can be tapped off with a hammer. With everything prepared, I can now install the crank back in the block and install the piston. Oil the rings with some assembly lube and use a ring compressor to install the piston. Make sure the arrow of the piston is facing down. I use assembly lube on the rod bearings before installing the rod cap, and I dip the rod bolts in oil before threading them in. Torque the rod bolt to 60 inch-pounds. Alternate between bolt to bolt, going up 15 inch-pounds at a time until you reach 150 inch-pounds. Install the followers and the cam, making sure to line up the dots on the cam and the crank. Install the side cover gasket and side cover and torque to 20 foot-pounds. The Wildcat has a torque sequence right on the side of the cover. When it's on the head, you will notice that the Wildcat has two different size head bolts. The longer bolts go in the lower set of holes. Torque the head to 20 foot-pounds. Install the push rods and the rockers. When setting valve lash, rotate the engine around until top dead center. You will notice the exhaust compresses, then the intake, and then this is followed by the compression release. Make sure not to set the valve lash on the compression release. I'm using this valve lash adjusting tool to set the valve lash. Set it to 0.003 of an inch on both intake and exhaust. To lap the flywheel, remove the key and use valve grinding compound. Place a small amount on the crankshaft and twist on the new flywheel on the taper. This will mate the two surfaces. Make sure when done, we clean all the compound off the flywheel and the crank. I use a crankshaft stop to stop the crankshaft from rotating when I'm torquing the flywheel to 54 foot-pounds. Install the coil using a 15 thousandths feeler gauge to gap the coil. The last piece are the carb and the fan shroud. So the engine's all done. I have it stood up on its back just because it's quicker and easier to put oil in it. But we always run Dominator racing oil after we do the break-in cycle. We use their break-in oil from AMSOIL on any break-in cycle. You'll actually gain a half a horsepower is what we've shown on our dyno from switching from break-in to Dominator. And that's because break-in oil is made to help break in all the bearings. So it is high zinc, but it doesn't have a lot of friction modifiers in it. So when you switch from break-in to this, you might not feel a difference, but it does make a horsepower difference. And we have linked in the video's description where you can go to Clovis Lubricants. He is AMSOIL dealer. He's the reason we have our dyno. Massive shout out to Clovis Lubricants. And if you become a preferred customer, you can save up to 25% off on oil, and it kind of helps level out the cost of AMSOIL. But AMSOIL tells you right on the bottles like how long their oil lasts. This can handle up to like 10,000 RPMs is what they rate this oil for. But it's worth checking out and getting. And if you spend over $100, I think as a preferred customer, you get free shipping. So you can buy oil for your truck and your lawnmower, but support AMSOIL because they are the reason you're seeing this right now. All right, so we actually used EC's pipe bringing Side Fire 2000. So we haven't started yet. I had to come up with a throttle mechanism because I didn't have a top plate. EC was gonna send us one when we got the kit, but they forgot, I forgot. So I rigged one up. It's shown on screen. This is how we used to do it back in the day. If you don't have no money, that's the way to do it. This is a 10.5 to 1 ratio, compression ratio. So that's significantly better. Make sure the gas in it.
It ain't got no gas in it.
Okay, we're gonna put some gas in it and we'll come back at you. All right, we got gas in it now. So. Scared me with the straight pipe. She's still cold.
Huh. That don't sound healthy.
Okay, so I rode the bike around the garage and the carb is tuned probably more for a factory airbox. So what we did was we took that EC jet kit and we put the number 37, the .037 jet in the carburetor, and it actually ran perfect. So if you are gonna be running this kit with the Wildcat, if you're using that PK-3A carb, then that Tillotson carb, then you're going to want to get at least around a 37 jet for it. So now she runs great. Now let's take it out, do the top speed run, and get it on the dyno.
Lonnie held her to the freaking wood. He's like way down there. I guess he was getting every mile an hour out of that thing he possibly could. Where's he at? Where is he? Oh, there he is. Oh, easy. I'm ultra zoom 76 right now. Look at all this trash all over the place. He just holding her to the wood. I was like, Lonnie held her dang to the wood.
What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. Like,
It kept climbing on the way there, which it started going downhill, so I was like, all right, it's going to be cheating if I keep going.
so probably like 45,
48.
48. That's pretty good.
41 on the way back when it's slightly uphill.
Okay, 48 mile per hour.
All right, guys, so we have all of our numbers. I have my cheat sheets in front of me so I can see what the engine was stock and what it is now. And we had some pretty decent gains with this stage kit. So like we said at the first of the video, this is kind of a stage 1 plus. This is like a budget performance build that's going to give you strength, longevity, and a decent little power jump. So we can see with our dyno numbers, we made 13% more torque and we made 24% more horsepower. That's a pretty big gain. Now, this engine right now, if you did all these parts to it, including the header that we ran on this video, you would be around $490 all in. That's including buying the engine. So if we compare that to the Ghost, which would be a $550 engine, and we're not counting taxes and we're not counting shipping or anything like that, just the face value of the products. This is still cheaper and it makes almost the same exact power as the Ghost 212. The reason the Ghost has done so well in horsepower and torque is because it has that PZ22 carburetor. This is our biggest bottleneck right now, is this carb. But again, we wanted to keep this around budget, safety, and strength with this first build. And that's exactly what we got here. Now, if we would have threw a PZ22, we still would have been really close to the Ghost in price. We would have been a little bit higher actually on the Wildcat, and I'm counting buying the Ghost as well as the accessory kit, but we would have made even more power out of this Wildcat because that's our biggest bottleneck is the carb flowing gas and air into the engine. So, and the Predator is still not really safe at 6,000 RPM, even though Harbor Freight claims it is a 6,000 RPM engine. We have a cast flywheel that is perfectly safe at 6,000 RPM installed on this engine, and we have that billet rod. Plus the Ghost is getting a decent amount of horsepower from their little bit more aggressive cam that's in it as well. So the cam paired with the carb is a big difference, and that's where it's getting its gain. But the horsepower numbers are very subtle. You would never notice the two if you swapped them out on your bike between this Wildcat the way it is and a Ghost. They'd feel really close the same. You're just cheaper with the Wildcat and you have more strength and reliability. Now, when we talk about miles per hour on a Benny bike, this is kind of not as big a deal as it looks, but it's basically 0 to 30 seconds. Stock was 6.86 seconds. 0 to 30 was 4.78 with the new build of the Wildcat. And most of that is done with these new parts, just helping it get to that 30 miles per hour faster. Now, of course, we removed the governor, so we're letting the engine rev more, so we're going to get a higher top speed. That's all that the top speed number is really dictated by, is gearing, tire size, and RPMs of your engine. It doesn't matter if you have a 1200 horsepower engine or a 5 horsepower engine, and if both of them turn 6,000 RPMs and we have a 20-inch tire on the bike with a 5-to-1 gearing ratio, our top speed is going to be exactly the same. It's just how fast did you get to that top speed is what the 1200 horsepower engine is going to do over the 5 horsepower engine. Remember that. It doesn't matter what your top speed is, it's how fast did you get to that top speed. But we did jump up to 45 miles per hour with this new build. You can say 48. Lonnie did stretch it out, but it took forever to get that last 3 miles per hour. So I'm not really counting it. So 48 but I'm saying 45 miles per hour. So that's a 15 mile an hour gain, which we knew that would happen with the governor removed. But the biggest thing is shaving over 2 seconds off of our 0 to 30 time. That's huge numbers for not a lot of money, and the fact that we got a good, strong engine that's going to last is what this series was all about. Now, the next video, we're doing a stage 2 kit. What we're going to be doing on that video is installing a billet flywheel. We're going to be installing a cam, and we're going to put a PZ22 carburetor, and that's where we're going to see massive gains with this next video. So I'm really excited for the next Road to Horsepower on the Wildcat. Remember to comment in the comment section and let us know what a couple more engines that you guys would like to see. What we're going to do is kind of tally up what engines you guys are saying, and that will be what the next couple of Road to Horsepowers will be. And then at the end of all these Road to Horsepowers, we're going to compare the engines and what we've did. Even though there'll be different styles of builds, still going to be cool to compare them at the end of it. So I hope you guys are excited. It's really exciting to do a different engine. I was kind of getting tired of the Hemi Predator, just one thing after another, but we are jumping back on it in a couple weeks and going to start making even more power with that engine as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, EC, for supporting these videos, and we thank you so much, and we can't wait to see what 2024 has in store for us. And so stay safe, guys. We thank you, we love you, and God bless.